What is up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Long time no see, babe. How you doing? How you feeling, babe?
I'm okay.
Babe is
I
power. Go ahead.
I'm excited about having Lauren. It's not a reflection on Lauren whatsoever. I am so excited. This is the only thing I've wanted to do all day because I have not felt well. I have my throat coat tea here, just like our good friend Lainey was talking about a couple weeks ago. I'm very hoarse. I kind of have like a throat, what's it called? A raspy voice.
Babe, I don't
Yeah.
think we talked about that on air with Lainey, but tell folks your secret
Oh,
from theater. Like that's what you used, right? From in the theater.
yeah, this is throat coat is like the secret tea of all like theater and public speakers. Sorry. I
That's
took some
okay.
Dayquil and I'm a little slow, I guess.
You're jacked up on the juice. It's okay, but we're excited. We're super excited to have Lauren Conlin on because. And by the way, we were talking about this. This is a little nerve wracking because this is the second time we're kind of interviewing the interviewer. We had Joel Waldman from Surviving the Survivor, and that was
Hmm.
nervous. And now I'm also nervous because Lauren interviews people, and now we have to interview her. So I'm sure she's probably thinking like, let's make sure these are good questions, and these two jabronis aren't gonna. And by the way, she's also we were just talking. She's from New York as well, so I'm excited about that. We always love to have our guests who are from New York or Long Island. I see Raul is here from New York and Long Island catch list. Hey, Raul. Um, so we are super excited. For folks that don't know, Lauren is a New York City based journalist, podcaster, and host who has her finger on the pulse of pop culture and true crime at all the time. At all times. She's currently an entertainment and lifestyle writer reporter for Pop Style TV and Nikki Swift Celebrity, and previously worked for 77 WABC Radio, uh, WNBC. Probably people don't know what I'm talking about. Writing news briefs and articles pertaining to entertainment, crime, and politics, while also serving as on air talent.
Lauren is the creator and host of the pop culture news, crime, and entertainment podcast, Lauren Interviews. She has featured interviews with public figures like Joe Exotic, actors like Kira Sedgwick and Alec Baldwin, plus Real Housewives like Luann Money Can't Buy You Class DeLessis.
I had her take that part of the bio because I didn't know how to pronounce the last name of the Real Housewives. So, Lauren also loves to investigate and write about true crime and reveal brand new interviews and information regarding the deaths of actor Brittany Murphy and her husband Simon Monjack in 2020, which led to her being featured on Vice TV and Law and Crime. And she also hosts the podcast Corruption: What Happened to Grant Solomon. And folks, if you are not familiar with that case, we're going to get into it very early on, from me starting this account on TikTok. The Solomons reached out to me, and we had kind of shared a TikTok. We had tweeted about it, so we're gonna get into that. So, without further ado, Lauren Conlin. Hey,
Hi
Lauren,
guys.
Hi, Lauren.
how are you?
Hi. I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's Friday, so
Yeah, it's Friday, and we were talking about, and our kids are off, so it's like, oof, what are
I
we doing? Like,
mm,
it's got to figure out what to do for these kids. Like, we have to figure out what to feed them and like give them activities. It's a little much, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think, Lauren?
I agree with you. I was like, I didn't really sign up to like watch you every day, all day. No, I'm just kidding. That's what school's for. Yeah, my
Right.
kids are obviously off as well, but
It's like at some point, guys, you got to figure it out. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You've been around here long enough. You know the deal. Like, go to the cabinet and figure it out. But your kids are a little younger than ours, so. But either way, at a certain point, figure it out. What are we
yeah,
doing
there
here?
was a lot of TV today. I'm ashamed, but there was a lot of TV. But what can you do?
No, do not be ashamed of that because we're all doing that. What's the show? What's the go-to show right now that your kids
Oh
are
my
watching?
gosh, I don't know. They like to watch movies, so they were watching like Yes Day and Netflix basically. Netflix is our
Hmm.
jam.
Netflix. That's a
Hmm.
good call. So, all right, let's
Yeah.
get into it. There's a lot we can get into. Let's start with your journalism career. What made you want to get into journalism?
Well, this is interesting. I think that it's important for people to know that I changed careers later in life. I I came to New York to be an actress. So I was majoring in theater. I know, right? It's so rare. Someone came to New York to be an actress and then they quit. But no, I I majored at Marymount in musical theater, and then after the first year, I decided that I didn't want to pursue that, and I switched to communications and journalism. And I had a few news jobs, and then I decided it was bad. News jobs, in my opinion, were very bad. The hours were terrible. I think I was making $13 or $14 an hour at Fox 5, and the hours were like 4 a.m. to 11. It was just bad. So I actually switched careers and started working in digital marketing, which is where I met my husband. And I did that until about 2018. And then I really missed journalism and digging into stories. And so I kind of got back into it. And I want to say, like, it really is fake it till you make it sometimes, where, I was weaseling my way into some red carpets just through some contacts I had made along the way. And then I started my podcast, which was originally Red Carpet Rendezvous. And then I morphed that into Lauren Interviews because I wanted to expand a bit more. I wanted to cover crime. I wanted to cover some politics and not just entertainment. And I, as you mentioned, I write for a few websites. I had a couple radio jobs. I also hosted a show on WOR as well. That was short-lived too, because that was at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. The hours are so bad. I know, it's so brutal. But the Grant Solomon case is actually my first investigative podcast. So I will admit it started off very rough around the edges, very rough. I would say the first 10 episodes, I look back and I'm kind of cringing. I had to brush up on a lot of things, but one thing I'll say is that my heart is deeply in this case, and I feel very strongly about it. People have said, "Oh, she's so biased. She's this," and I'm like, well, I feel like journalists pick up certain cases because they have doubts, and they do have a bias, and I've always been editorial, so I haven't really apologized for that. I do think, though, and I hope and pray every day that pretty soon we will get justice. So and with there's some strong people that are coming on board helping out with this case. So fingers crossed.
Well, I mean, I feel like with that introduction to the Grant Solomon case, let's scrap the plan. Let's get into it. Let's talk about for folks who aren't familiar. Which, by the way, before we do, we are all about starting new careers and starting out with rough. Like, we just started this 7 months ago, and like I look back at my first YouTubes, and I'm like, oh, what the hell was I doing? But I feel like if you don't do that and you just wait for the perfect time until you have the best setup and it looks the best, you're never going to start. So we're all about that. But all right, tell folks about the Grant Solomon case who are not familiar with the case.
Yeah, so I was checking my email one day, and I think I had signed a petition on change.org, so I was getting those automated emails, and I saw a subject line that said, "Help me reopen or investigate the death of my son," and it caught my attention, and I read it, and it was Angie Solomon's plea, and it was very descriptive, and my jaw dropped. I was like, how have I not heard of this? And how is this not on the national news? How is this not in the media at all? I had researched it. I saw a couple TikToks, and I was floored. So essentially, for people that don't know the case, there's a young man, Grant Solomon. He was 18 years old. His family, his mom and dad were divorced, and they had a pretty bad divorce. They were in custody battles for 10 years, and they were ugly. Grant and his sister Gracie were taken away from their mom. And this was something that at first really confused me, because I said to myself, well, what court sides with the dad and takes the kids from the mom? I was like, so I was skeptical. I was like, this is weird. And I'll get to that. So, yeah, they had a very, very tumultuous relationship, Grant and his father. He didn't like what his dad was doing to his mom. There was a little bit of alleged abuse that was reported in the courts. But anyway, Grant's dad had signed him up for this baseball clinic in Gallatin, Tennessee, and the Solomons live in Franklin. So Franklin, I should say, is a very affluent town. I mean, Justin Timberlake has a house there, Carrie Underwood, Faith Hill. It's very nice. Gallatin is about an hour away, about 50 miles. And Grant was a very skilled basketball player. But this was COVID. It was July of 2020. His dad had made this appointment. Grant didn't really want to go. He had told his mom, I don't feel good. He had just gotten over COVID. His whole baseball team had it. So he was kind of just like, I don't think it's worth the money because this place is pretty expensive. And so Angie Solomon, his mother, texted Grant's father, Aaron Solomon, and said, Grant doesn't want to go. And Aaron never responded. So Angie was like, honey, I think you just got to go and suck it up. And Grant's like, fine, I'll go, but I don't want him there. I'm 18, So Angie said, he doesn't really want you there. And the next morning, her tune did change a bit because Grant didn't feel good. He really was having trouble breathing. And she had texted him and said, look, if you're not going to be there, I'll go because Grant really doesn't feel good. And then Aaron responded, I'll be there. So something important to note about Aaron Solomon is he's a local celebrity. He was this Nashville news anchor, WSMB4, for many, many years. Very, very well known. So this is where it gets a little tricky. According to Aaron Solomon, he was in the parking lot of the Ward Performance Institute when Grant pulled in. According to Aaron, he was checking an email on his phone, or as he likes to say, a work email, like nobody asked, but okay, a work email on his phone. And the next thing he knows, he sees, he had noticed from the corner of his eye, Grant was getting out of his truck, going around to the bed of the truck to get his baseball equipment. Now, WPI, I have been to the scene of the crime in Tennessee. It is on a very, very heavy incline. I don't know the exact degrees off the top of my head, but it's a very heavy incline. So the next thing Aaron notices, he looks up and Grant's truck has gone all the way down the hill into this ditch and he can't see Grant. So he gets out and he sees Grant trapped under his truck, underneath it in this ditch. And he says, my son has been dragged underneath his car down to this ditch. So he calls 911. And if anybody is familiar with this case, the 911 call is spooky. It gives me chills every time, you guys. You have kids. It is not the sound of a concerned father. This is obviously my opinion. You can form your own. I would listen to it. I've had, yeah, I love the comments. So fun. Yeah, it's wild. And I've had forensic analysts analyze this, called deception analysts. And they have all said on record, 100% deception. That's number one. Number two, Grant's body. I'm going to be a little descriptive for a minute. If you had driven your car over an hour in the summertime, it'd be very hot underneath. And, I'm sorry, if you were dragged by a car, your body down a hill about 60 feet, your body would be hamburger meat. And Grant was perfect. His body was in perfect condition. The only marks he had like a mark on his cheek, and he had a mark on his thigh that his mother thought was from sliding into home base or something a few weeks before. And the official cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. So Gallatin PD spent only 57 minutes at the scene of the accident. 57 minutes. We have spent more time. I mean, I spent more time on the first episode. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. So Gallatin PD, Gallatin is a small-ish town, and the police force, I would say it's decent for a small town. They have an accident reconstruction team in-house. When you go to WPI and Aaron, you hear this 911 call and he's saying, I don't know. He's explaining, I guess the car wasn't in park or something, or it was, something happened to it. It was malfunctioned. Well, this car on the hill, if it's not in park, honey, it's going down. It's not going to wait for anything. Also, they had the truck inspected. Angie Solomon did, after the accident. And by the way, Aaron Solomon drove that truck around for a month after. Would you drive the malfunctioned truck around that your kid died in, basically? No. She had it inspected. No malfunction. Nothing. So, yeah, this is not concerning at all to anyone. Totally fine. So anyway, Aaron is released by the cops. They question him. They barely question him. I'll just say this. They maybe ask him one question. His written statement, I would implore people to go to the episode where I have the Peter Hyatt analysis team. There's someone from the FBI that analyzes his handwriting and compares it to that of Jeffrey Dahmer's. It's very, very interesting. But he calls his ex-wife, Angie, and obviously she's an hour away. So she meets him at the hospital. And at that point, Grant had passed away. They had pronounced him dead about 30 minutes after he got into the ambulance. And Aaron had already said, no autopsy. No autopsy. So at this point, Angie is a grieving mother. She cannot think. She is on the ground sobbing. She doesn't even know for how long. And when she finally looks up, she sees her ex-husband in the corner on the phone with a singer for Grant's funeral. So this is one layer of the onion. The other layer where it gets very complicated is this was 2020, dating back to 2018. Grant's younger sister Gracie had alleged that her father, Aaron Solomon, had been sexually abusing her since she was 6 years old. She told her school. If you listen to the podcast, Angie Solomon was amazing, and she recorded conversations of the school just completely mishandling this. I mean, the school did not report this to the police. They did not. And not only that, at one point, Gracie had a restraining order. She was able to get a restraining order. And Aaron went to the courts and said, well, I still want to be able to go to their school because of XYZ. So the judge literally made the school exempt on the restraining order. It blows my mind. So yeah, he's allowed on campus. Gracie Solomon is completely traumatized. She's petrified of her father. And so in 2021, after claiming that her father had abused her, and at one point she alleged that he raped her in a hotel room in North Carolina when they were on a baseball trip for Grant. It's horrible. Nobody would listen to her. It was traumatizing. So she made a YouTube video, and you can search that video. It's just Gracie Solomon, a cry for help. It's incredibly brave. Oh my God. It gives me chills to think about this. She was 14 at the time, and she was just like, screw it. I'm telling my story. I'm going to say this, and this is my story. So the abuse of Gracie was reported to the school. It was known that Grant had a meeting with his pastor at church who had founded the school. And Grant allegedly told him what was going on and wanted his help. And when Grant passed away and he was called out for this by, Grant's mother and his sister, well, we know that Grant came to you. Why didn't you help? Well, this pastor said, oh, no, he just wanted to talk to me about his faith. And guys, if there's one thing about Grant Solomon, he was such a faithful young man, so full of grace. You can see the pictures of him at his baseball games with crosses on his cheek. I mean, he was just lovely. And he was so sound in his faith. He was so sound. So going back to how Angie Solomon lost custody of her kids and had began battling with Aaron for so many years, Aaron seemed to have the courts in the palm of his hand. He seemed to know everybody. It was said that he sat in the same row as Governor Bill Lee at Grace Chapel, where they went to church, allegedly. And he was just connected. So Aaron claimed that Angie Solomon was crazy. And when I say crazy, there's no actual diagnosis. Just she's crazy. She's mentally ill. So he tried to have character witnesses go against her. In turn, she came back with just doctors evaluating her, saying, no, she's not crazy. And Angie Solomon is a doctor of pharmacy. So meanwhile, while she's losing custody of her kids because she's crazy, they're like, oh no, you still have to work and fill prescriptions because you have to pay child support. So a lot of this is just it's completely crazy. But gosh, I feel like there's so much more. There's just so much more corruption and things that I'm uncovering as I go through this. I mean, just last week, I was digging through something, and there is a congressman. He's I think he's the Senate Majority Leader, Jack Johnson, who also goes to Grace Chapel. And oh, this is even better. His wife, Deanna Johnson, is a judge who actually at one point ruled against Angie in court. So Jack Johnson in 2022 was trying it, and I believe the bill is dead, but he's trying to push it through another way. He is trying to push through a bill where you cannot open a death investigation that's non-criminal. Everything is closed, all public records. And he's claiming this is because of Naomi Judd, because of Ashley Judd said, I don't want the media looking into my mother's suicide. This is, and I get it. Like it's heartbreaking, Ashley. I can only imagine. I mean, it's horrible. But this is bigger than just you and your mother. And while I am so sorry for the Judd family, this is like she's a public figure, so that's going to happen. I guess people are going to want to look into that. But yeah, I mean, can you believe that this guy connected to that church who allegedly helped cover this up? I mean, he says, oh yeah, no, definitely let's close all non-criminal investigations, because according to the state of Tennessee, this is non-criminal and it's closed. I've been on the phone with City Legal. I recorded the call and I played it on the podcast where they're like, bless your heart, honey, this is closed. Like they claim they did a second investigation, which was essentially going back to WPI and being like, nope, yep, nothing happened here. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot this. I'm sorry. This is something about the 911 call and the scene of the accident. On the call, Aaron never goes down to the ditch. I want to make that very clear. He never goes down to see his dying son. And the 911 operator says, is he okay? Is he breathing? What's going on? And Aaron says, I've got 3 guys down there. 3 men are down there helping him. Well, by the time the paramedics arrived, 3 men are gone. And no one that we know of has found them or talked to them. However, Beth Braden, who is a journalist with Luna Shark Media, who has done 2 episodes on this, she had requested body cam footage through FOIA, and the Gallatin PD said, we don't have any. That's what she got back. But they had about 6 witnesses on this piece of paper that they blocked out their names. So that was pretty crazy. I was like, 6 witnesses. I'm thinking, Aaron, and then there was 2 employees at WPI that they spoke to briefly, which I can get into later. Really, I think something is sketchy with that, or they're scared. And then the other 3 would potentially be the 3 men. So maybe Gallatin PD did find these 3 men, but no one knows about it. All I know is that something stinks, and everybody in that town is scared to talk. I've had sources come to me off the record telling me horrendous stories of abuse scandals in the church and how scary these men are in the church. And I'll tell you, I've lost sleep over this because we're from the North, and I am actually religious, which I think is rare for New York. We have a church community, and people are shocked at that. But there is nothing scarier than a man of God claiming to be, your friend and claiming to be kind and full of grace, and then to have them actually be this scary. So that just sends shivers down my spine.
Well, that is a lot, folks. And if you want to learn about all of it, the podcast is called Corruption: What Happened to Grant Solomon. We've been putting Lauren's link tree in the chat. So make sure you check it out. I saw a few folks said they're binging it. They're gonna binge it. Obviously, you need to binge it with everything that's going on here. I mean, how many episodes have you done so far?
I think there's about 35 episodes and 3 bonus episodes. But like I said, just forgive me for like the first 10. It's so
Don't
cringy. I'm
no
sorry.
no
I wish you could skip ahead. But yeah.
no. We're
Okay. Well,
gonna
thank you.
check it out and give it 5 stars, like we always say. We don't know how the algorithm works, but we know that that works. So make sure you're checking it out, and that's on Apple and all kind of podcast
Yeah.
places.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
Yeah, like I said, very early on. I'm not sure who handles their TikTok account. I think it might be Dr. Angie Solomon. But I gotta, they said, hey, could you check out the case? And I watched this TikTok. It was like, I guess their most viral one, where they were describing what was going on, and I'm like, there's something's wrong here. So like anyone who watches that or listens to the podcast, I think it's very clear that there needs to be a further investigation. So it's good on you, Lauren, for looking into this. And I mean, it seems like this is kind of consuming your life at this point. I mean, like,
Well, it's funny you say that because I mean, this is I haven't monetized this, you guys. This was started off as a passion project. I actually, when I first saw this on change.org, I reached out to I think it was like the Justice for Grant email, and I set up an interview for Angie Solomon for Lauren interviews. I was going to do like a one-off thing and be like, tell me your story. I'll give you a platform. I'll highlight you. And I blocked off 20 minutes of my day, and I ended up having to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, because we stayed on for 3 hours. I had to like clear a bunch of stuff, and it was heartbreaking. I found myself crying, and I found myself like, I should not be showing this emotion. And then I thought about it, and I was like, I don't understand how no one can can help this woman and get this on the media. And now I see that, the local media has blocked this because they're petrified of these people. I'm sure there's been major threats. I'm sure there's, it's crazy. And the fact that it seems like everybody agrees that this should be reopened and something is wrong except for the state of Tennessee, that says something, because the state of Tennessee, it is listed in the top 10 corrupt states next to DC. Would you ever have thought that? I would have never in my life thought that. I would be like, oh yeah, New York, California. No, it is like DC, Tennessee. So yeah, I don't know if you guys also saw the clip from CrimeCon, but the team from the Southern Girl, I think it's called Southern Girl Crime or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right. They asked Nancy Grace. They said, are you going to be
oh yeah,
covering
I
Grant
said
Solomon?
yes.
Yeah, you saw that? Because we heard a rumor you're going to be covering Grant Solomon. And Nancy Grace said, oh, yes, I am. And there's a reason I'm covering it. And I was like, so this could be, what we all need.
By the way, I know you just recently retweeted. So if you're make sure first of all make sure you're following Lauren on Twitter, but there's a petition, folks, and we need signatures. So make sure when you go to that link tree and you go to Lauren's, and I retweeted it too, sign that petition. Guys, you know how this is. If more, we need more people to get this out there. The more we need more eyes on this. So
Yeah, I mean, the petition is interesting because it's for DA Ray Whitley, and the petition, guys, has almost 300,000 signatures, and this old man ain't moving. So, I don't. It's wonderful to sign it. There's also a GoFundMe. Where you can donate just to the cause of the case, because we've had to use private investigators, we've had to like use a lot of resources because clearly the state of Tennessee is not giving us any. So yeah, it's interesting. And I will say, on my podcast, I have a lot of experts in terms of body language experts who analyze his eulogy, or Aaron Solomon's eulogy about his son, which to me, it sounds like he's announcing him to come out and get like an award. It's so cringy and troubling, and you got to hear it, guys. It's very similar to the 911 call, and there's a lot of reasons that could be. He's used to being like a broadcaster, a news anchor, and just turning it on and off, but man, something is so off, so off. And like I said, Cheryl McCollum, who I know that you guys know, she is wonderful on an episode. She is so good, and she actually referred me to the Peter Hyatt analysis team, Paul Maladay and Peter Hyatt and their team, just full of forensic deception experts that are just amazing.
You had Mac on. You should have led with that. We love Mac. You guys know it's got to
Oh
be good. If
yeah.
Mac is the best ever. So
Mm.
check out the pod, guys. Please give it 5 stars, or we're coming to your houses. Uh, Babe, go ahead. I feel like you
Well,
probably
I
have
was
more.
just going to say that's important, not only for Grant and his family, but it sounds like for the whole community and people who are living in fear, people who have had, judgments against them that were not fair. I mean, that kind of happened in South Carolina with the Murdaugh thing. Once you can crack it open and get some sunlight in there, it's going to be better. I mean,
Yep.
this kind of law or whatever cannot pass. This is so terrible to think that, they can rule something an accident and then you can never have it reopened.
I agree with you, and I think you nailed it. I mean, this community, it's like half the people. I've made some TikToks about it, and I was able to pitch Nikki Swift Celeb on this feature, Dark Secrets of the Celebrity-Filled Town of Franklin, Tennessee. Oh, and I got, I used Carrie Underwood's picture for clickbait. I'll just admit that. And then yeah, I went through some of the scandals, and it's so interesting, the comments on TikTok. Some people are like, "Oh my gosh, I've heard about this," and some people are like, "Wait, what's going on?" But I think it's important to note that in the South, and yeah, exactly, Grant's case is definitely not the only corruption. And in the South, I've learned. I mean, I offended a lot of people, I think, at the beginning, because I was shocked at just the difference between the North and the South. My latest guest made a comment, and she's like, "No, in the South, it's like, where do you live? What church do you go to?" Right? So it's all about the church. And I don't want to be controversial or sound insensitive at all, but with the manifesto of the Nashville shooter, the Covenant School shooter, being leaked last week, it's been discussed that that church and that school covered up a lot of corruption and abuse, sexual abuse, when the shooter was at that school. So it goes, you go down a road like, if this wasn't swept under the rug, if this never happened, would we have to bury these children, right? It's like, it's so crazy to think about. And this abuse and this corruption, I mean, you can find it online. Mike Huckabee, his ghostwriter, John Perry, was a founder of that church and that school, and it's right there. He abused a girl that was from age 11 to 14. The school covered it up. Her family in 2014 sued everybody trying to cover it up, and he was never pursued and never prosecuted because of the statute of limitations. So I want to make one more connection with that I found interesting. Marsha Blackburn recently filed a subpoena for the Epstein flight log. And if anyone knows me, last summer, I was really investigating Epstein. His townhouse is 9 blocks from me. I was showing up there every day trying to get in. So I want that list more than anyone. But I'm like, hey, Marsha, your timing is sus. Like, why do you want it now? You've had a long time to file this, right? To subpoena this. I mean, this is crazy. Are you maybe wanting to protect your friends who might be on that list? Like, if you get that list first, you can kind of like scrub out. So I mean, that's a thought that kind of rolled off my tongue, but yeah, I think the timing is crazy, and I think a lot more abuse and corruption is going to be exposed in Tennessee.
A lot going on here, folks. A lot going on. By the way, you mentioned TikTok. You're on TikTok. All on the links, you guys. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Follow them all. It's great. It's really, when I say creators who crush, you look at all her. I don't know how you do it, by the way, because I struggle doing it. But like, you're on all of them and posting updates on all of them, and it's great. So make
I
sure
mean,
you.
thank you for saying that. I feel like my content is so slept on sometimes. So I feel like I don't know who's looking at it. It's funny. I feel like my TikTok following is pretty good. But it's weird. The views are the algorithm is so weird on
Well,
TikTok.
I'll say what I've learned from starting this, because I'm on all of them too. The thing that
Yeah.
I don't know if people realize is you cannot make something on YouTube that's going to do good. Like, they all have their different, the formats, the way you do the font, the way you do, and like certain things have songs that you could play on one, but then you're going to copyright you on Facebook, or like there's I'm sure you're doing so much work to like. It's not easy to like. A lot of people used to say to me, "Well, get this app and it posts to all of them at the same time." That doesn't work, folks,
No.
because they're all different. they all have to be. I mean, Shannon works on the videos that we do put on like Instagram and TikTok, which are different from what we and like how long does it take you just to make one of those 30-second like videos? Like,
Well, I mean, it takes a while, and it's just like you said, you have to format it a little bit differently for each
Yeah.
platform. And, like hashtags or no hashtags or what, TikTok, it's like a full different algorithm with the hashtags. Like you're not using hashtags that have anything to do with your video whatsoever.
No,
I
I
mean,
agree.
like all the time, I'm like clicking on the video and it's like toenail fungus or something, but it's not about that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So
It,
yeah,
well, so
it can be a full-time job. I agree.
definitely.
well, let me
Yeah.
ask you this: so you have the true crime, which we just talked about the podcast. But you're also doing like pop culture stuff. Like, is it for you? Is it nice to have like something else that you're into too, to like just to maybe as like a mental health break a little bit? Like, how is that for you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I was writing a feature about Rob Schneider and Adam Sandler, and I was like, this is great. So I get to talk about the water boy. Like, it was really nice. And yeah, I'm covering on Monday, I'm covering the opening of a Broadway show called Harmony. So I'll post lots of content about that. I do think it's important that I personally take a break from crime, but also I love entertainment. I love movies. I love television shows. So I love being able to tell people about a new movie to watch or a new show to watch. And recently, I was incredibly honored to be on Fox News talking about Matthew Perry. I mean, I couldn't believe I got that call. It was really nerve wracking because I was honoring him. And, the night before I did a breaking news hit on Fox about his death, and they wanted me to talk about his health issues. And I felt really bad because he had just died, and I'm sitting there talking about how his colon exploded in 2018. And that's just, you kind of feel like shit about that. So I was really happy to be able to go on the next day and just talk about and celebrate his life. So it's like a lot of pressure, but it was just really rewarding and just it felt nice to honor an actor that I love so much. And gosh, his death still upsets me.
Yeah, for sure. And
Right?
I'm curious because you kind of said you started on red carpet, like that was one of your first gigs. That seems like it's getting thrown into the fire. Like, what was it like to start off on red carpets as like one of your first gigs?
Well, you guys will be familiar, but do you know George Whipple with the eyebrows from New York One?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
yeah. So I actually started off, he had outsourced, they didn't give him a producer at New York One. So he outsourced a team, which was actually my brother, who was shooting for him. And my brother had suggested me, oh, my sister can be your producer. She's great. She's got experience. And I actually had just had my son, my second child, and I was itching to get back to work and out of the house. I was like, again, I did not sign up to take care of a baby all day. I love you, MJ. But yeah, so I was itching to go back to work and do something. And so I started off producing for George. It was wonderful. George was a great mentor. And eventually George was kind of like, can you just handle this carpet? And so he actually threw me in at the Game of Thrones season finale
Wow.
premiere, which was I was shitting my pants, excuse me. I was like, he
Yeah.
literally goes, yeah, he goes, I have to pee. Can you do this interview with what the guy who played Hodor? I was just like, what? Okay. If you watch it, I was like, I mean, it was incredible. The experience was amazing. I learned a lot. I got rid of my giggle, thank God. Looking back, I was like, shut up. You're not as dumb as you want everyone to think you are with this giggle. It's a nervous giggle. But yeah, that was great. And then eventually, I don't want to say that I outgrew George, but when he was back on the carpet and I was not the one asking the questions and being sort of in the mix, it didn't feel right to me. I was like, I want to ask more thoughtful questions. Then, what does it feel like to be, I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to just do my thing. And so everybody was starting a podcast, it seemed like. And I was like, well, maybe I will too. And so I did. And, when I checked with George, I said, are you cool with this? And he said, yeah. And I spoke to some of the contacts I made. And I will say it again, it really is fake it till you make connections, because the first year I did red carpets, this PR company let a fool like me on a carpet for the Film Critics Circle where I was interviewing Antonio Banderas, the Safdie brothers when they made Uncut Gems. And, you know, I do look back at those videos and I'm like, damn it, Lauren, like I wish it was now and I knew what I knew, but I still wouldn't trade it because it was just a great experience. So great.
By the way, I'm putting in now the podcast, which is Lauren Interviews. The other podcast, which you got to go and give 5 stars to. Check it out everywhere. Which you just had on Jack Osborne on November 6th, right? So that's
yes,
very cool.
I did. He's awesome.
Go ahead, babe. I've been trying to talk a little bit more because you're not feeling great, but I feel like you probably have a lot to ask here. So go ahead.
I do. Well, I just know that a lot of our audience are big housewife fans. So I have to ask you, you know, what are those interviews like with these larger than life personas that we see on reality TV?
I don't want to upset anybody.
I think we all know they're hot messes. It's okay.
It's not that. I mean, Luann was very cordial to me, very cordial, but I don't think she wanted to be there. Again, very kind, very cordial, very polite. You can just tell when someone doesn't really want to be there. Dolores Catania from New Jersey, so sweet, like genuinely the sweetest woman. I mean, so kind. What you see is what you get. And I'm gonna put this out there. Teresa Giudice, very sweet, incredibly sweet. So I haven't had her on my podcast, but this is really random. My husband used to do business with her new husband, Lou. So we actually had a dinner with them at one point. And I was like super nervous and she was so nice, like so normal, so nice, so chill. I mean, just not what the tabloids say about her. I was just really surprised. And I feel like, you know, when you snap in certain interviews, it's because they're rude. They want to pick at her and they want to get at her. And when you've been in the spotlight for that long and people pick apart your every move, it's just like, I can't imagine. Like, I'm a hothead. I would probably have the worst reputation because I would just snap. I mean, her kids grew up in the spotlight. So I do feel like they provoke her a lot. And she was just a sweetheart.
So I'm curious when you're doing these interviews, if there are people who are just kind of like ornery or kind of like a pain in the ass and just like, obviously you don't have to name names, but like, how do you
I would name names. Okay.
All right, so who's the biggest pain in your ass? No, but I'm curious I'm just curious, how do you handle that as an interviewer where it's your job, right, to get out good information and when we've seen some of these interviews where like it seems like it's like you're pulling teeth. So how do you handle that?
Babe, you went viral about
Oh, I did go viral. That's right.
What?
Ooh,
Tell
Lauren,
me.
let's talk about it.
Tell me.
I tweeted that Hugh Grant was being a major dick to what was her name?
Ashley Graham.
Yes.
Totally.
I was like, what a prick. I'm like, why be there on the like she's doing her job, and he made it like he was such an asshole, and it kind of went viral. Yes, it did. So
yeah.
I forgot about that.
I completely agree, and this is something that I say because just to let everyone know, on red carpets, you have a choice. You can just do pictures, and you can just walk off. You're not required to answer questions. I mean, I'm sure there's a chance if you're promoting a specific movie, like if you're at the opening night of, I don't know, like Legally Blonde or something, like, yeah, I'm sure Reese in her contract, it says you have to do an interview with E, Access Hollywood, whatever. But nowadays, you're not required. So I don't understand. I would say I did a phone interview with Steve Guttenberg, and I really like Steve Guttenberg, and he was, again, super cordial, very nice, but I mean, he didn't want to talk to me. Like, his answers were very like one word, and I would give it a pause because I can edit the pause, you know, whatever. And at one point I was like, Steve, who do you hang out with in Hollywood? Like, who are your best actor friends? And he's like, I don't want to tell you that. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, you know, I don't think you're very fucking famous anymore, but anyway, like, you know, I was like, God, like, it was just like very weird. And then there was one crazy you know that show on Apple TV, Truth Be Told, with Octavia Spencer and
Yes.
Aaron Paul? Okay,
Yes.
well, the Paley Center was doing this red carpet and talk back for that for the first season, and it was only the showrunner, Octavia Spencer, and Aaron Paul. And it's a very small carpet. There is like, it's all, Getty Images, all the photographers, and then there's like 4 reporters. So the carpet's running late. We're kind of standing around. It's fine. It happens. Then we hear that Aaron Paul is not going to make the carpet because he's shooting Colbert. It's running late, whatever. So we're like, okay, no problem. But Octavia is coming, right? And they're like, yeah, Octavia Spencer's coming. So Octavia finally shows up, and she takes pictures with the showrunner, and they're on the red carpet, and we're all getting ready. Well, Octavia looked over at us and then kind of like shook her head and then went back in the green room. Yeah. So we were like, I'm sorry, she's not doing interviews and we're all here to promote her show? Like, she produced that show. I mean, she makes
Yeah.
money if people watch it, and we are press, doing our job, which essentially, puts money in her pocket. So I always liked her, but after that, I was like, man, that was not nice. I don't understand. I did not. There's 4 of us there, 4 of us. So
I'm just so glad that didn't go down the route that Aaron Paul was a dick. I'm so glad that.
I could sense, babe, that you were getting like, oh God, she's gonna say Aaron Paul's a dick, and it's gonna just ruin my life.
no, actually, what I'll tell you is, one of the guys there was like, I can't accept this because my outlet is supposed to air this package tonight, and he was like, I can't not get an interview because like this, I will fail, And this was like for my podcast where, for me, I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm the owner. It's all good. But he's like, I need to figure this out. So he said, can I wait until after, the Q&A to get Aaron Paul? And they're like, well, yeah, if Aaron Paul's up to it, he might be tired. And I will tell you, Aaron Paul did the interview with him and he was happy to do it. So
There it is,
yeah.
folks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Oh, babe,
Go ahead, babe.
we're both so relieved.
Oh, and something cool that I'll say is like at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2021, this was one of the first red carpets that we were back after COVID. And the press people were like, everybody has to wear masks. You have to wear masks. And then, of course, the celebrities walked the red carpets with no masks. And it was just like, they couldn't understand me. So finally, I was taught, there was Sharon Stone here and Bryan Cranston here. And I just said, do you guys care if I just take this off? And they're like, no, we don't care at all. And it was just a really nice moment to know that not all of Hollywood was like super dickish about that. Excuse me. Like they were actually very cool about it. So it was nice.
Do not apologize about cursing on here. We love it. I could you're you're fitting right in here on here. The chat is loving it too. So
Oh, good.
Go ahead, babe. Did you have another one?
Well,
but if you don't, go ahead.
Yeah, go with yours.
I was going to ask, like, red carpet or interviews or being on, the news, like, commenting on stuff. What's your favorite thing? Like, what do you like? What if you had to pick something that you could? What's your favorite thing that you like to do?
I mean, I think the most rewarding has been the Grant Solomon case. I've never felt in my entire life that I had made a difference. I've always felt, entertainment, you do feel like a fluff journalist. You don't feel real. And it's not hard. I'll be honest, it's not hard. And this has been really challenging and really rewarding. I will say the news aspect is interesting. I do talk a little bit about politics, and I am an independent. I will just say it right now. I'm right in the middle. And I had recently I was asked to go out of my comfort zone and do a full hour show with Dan Abrams on News Nation. And I don't know if I'd do that again. It was like this Democrat that was screaming at me about my concern about fentanyl in New York City. He essentially he called me he felt bad for my children. He said it was just an experience. And listen, I have thick skin, but I was like kind of rocked because it was my first experience in discourse, on the air. And I think that the more experience I have with that. Maybe I think I would be a little bit better going back to him, but it was tough. I watched the clip and I blacked out, and I did like the woman thing where you just scream and point your finger. And I had so many facts about this. Like I was so well researched, and it was just like, I just felt it was kind of a bad feeling, and I didn't sleep the entire night. And I was so excited to be on this panel. And it was just like, oh man, I wish I had another shot at this. So I would say that was like fun, but it also really makes you like, just, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? And now red carpets, like, yeah, I don't know how to, it's like, I'm sure, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of set on red carpets, I guess. I don't know. They're okay. They were really exciting back, but after COVID, I'm sorry, to clarify, after COVID, they just weren't as good.
All right,
Yeah.
go ahead, babe. Did you think of something as a?
Well, great.
Aw.
I was just thinking that when you were imagining your life growing up, what did you think you were going to be? What did you tell people you wanted to be?
I'm gonna be on Broadway. Yeah, no, I'm totally. That was the
But you're
dream.
adjacent to it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the theater thing. I was gonna say I always had this problem of losing my voice. I was a big belter, and I would drink throat
Yeah.
coat, slippery elm. I don't know if you did that.
Yes.
And eventually I was just making myself like sick over the stress of not getting sick. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have an audition or I have a show. And it wasn't worth it. But yeah, that's where I saw myself. I think I saw myself being an actress. And I'll say being a reporter at WABC on the radio and then doing some news, I did get two gigs on one show being a reporter and then one film that hasn't come out yet. So that was kind of fun to sort of tie in acting with reporting.
I cannot believe it's almost been an hour already. This is
You know.
wild. So what I want to know, going back to the Grant Solomon case, I know you said that
Mhm.
probably the petition isn't the greatest thing. Like, what can
Yeah.
we do? What can the folks out there do? Like, what do you, in your opinion, to like get the word out to help with the case? What's the best thing we can do?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow the Instagram. It's Freedom for Gracie, which is Grant's sister. There's a lot of updates posted there, and you can share the podcast and share the case and tag someone in the news. Tag Chris Cuomo, tag Ashley Banfield. I mean, we've been doing this, and I feel like for the longest time we were tagging Nancy Grace, and I do know that at some point she's supposed to cover the case. So I do feel like that pays off, but I think it's just awareness, because the amount of people that don't know this case and just how damning all of the evidence is, it's crazy. And Grant deserves justice, and his mother deserves answers. My God. And his sister deserves to just live her life in peace. And these people, these men in Tennessee, they need to pay for their sins. I mean, you can't get away with this. It's just I just don't think that, they're religious. They're going to face God one day, and God's going to be like, good job deceiving those people and covering up that abuse, alleged abuse. Sorry, alleged, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so I hope that answered your question. Sorry, I went off into a
Yeah,
tangent.
so no, it did. And also, I maybe if you could, you said when you were talking about it before, there were some updates, like some bigger, like was that the Nancy Grace thing, or is there anything else that has
I
kind of?
mean, for me, like I said, I have just like when I found out about this bill that Congress is trying to push through, I was like, how have I not seen this? How have I not heard of this? This is crazy. But yeah, that's again, we have new updates pretty much every week with things that I'm digging into and looking into.
How often does the podcast? How often do the episodes come out?
It's weekly. It's every
Week.
Wednesday.
All right. So every Wednesday. Again, we're putting it in the link tree is in there, but it's corruption. What happened to Grant Solomon? For anyone who's listening to this who doesn't have access to the chat. Babe, you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm just glad that it's still going on weekly, and we have a big catalog, a backlog to binge. which is just
Oh,
like,
God.
as a person who loves entertainment, um, I love a good binge. So, you guys, we have got plenty to do this weekend. I'm so
Oh,
excited.
thank you. And thanks. My friend Chris was watching. He was very complimentary,
Yes,
saying
he
that,
said you're great on every
yeah,
single
no.
episode.
Thanks, Chris. You're sweet. But yeah, thank you guys for plugging everything. That was so nice of you. And I know that Grant's mom really appreciates it as well.
Yeah, of course. So whatever we could do, how we end these interviews is, I don't know if you're familiar with J-Bo Nation, but that's our group here because we learned during the Murdaugh trial that
Yeah.
a Bo in South Carolina is a friend, and they said, "Hey, Bo," that's how they, and we're New Yorkers. I had never heard of that. We're more like bro. What's up, bro? We're not like Bo. So you're now a Bo. You're a Bo. You're in J-Bo Nation. You're going to see people retweeting. We're going to get that stuff out there.
Thank
Following the pods, giving it 5 stars. Follow everywhere. TikTok. I mean, like I said, you're everywhere. TikTok, Instagram. It's all. By the way, and the one thing that I don't like about Linktree, when you check out the Linktree, check the top little icons. It looks like they're hidden, but that's
Yeah.
Lauren's links, guys. That's the one thing I have Linktree too that I don't like. Is it almost looks like it's like not yours. Like that is just an Instagram box. Click on
I
the
know.
box, and that goes to Lauren's, her Instagram, and it goes to her Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. It's all on there. Plus, with TikTok, guys, all you gotta do just comment. When you're just commenting, saying, "Hey, we want justice for Grant," on one of those, that makes it get it in the algorithm. Just like giving 5 stars gets it in the algorithm. So,
Yeah.
um, man, I can't believe it's been an hour. I want to thank you so much, Lauren, for coming on with
Yeah.
us. Any final words? Anything you wanted to plug? Go for it. Nothing.
No, I've talked enough. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you were awesome. This was
Oh,
amazing. Definitely
Yes.
one of the. Go ahead, baby.
Well, I was just so exciting to have you.
oh,
And we're so happy to, help you out in any way we can. So please stay in touch with us if you want to come back on.
take you up
And
on
yes,
that.
and we'd love to have you back on sometime, especially if you want to update us on the case.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. And if you guys are in Manhattan, let me know.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. Absolutely. All right. So have a good night, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you for joining us, J-Bo Nation. Please give all of yourselves an ovation. No, it won't be real long until next time. Oh, J-Bo Nation, there's no place we'd rather be. J-Bo Nation is the place to 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 be.